Happy Thanksgiving, Internet. I'm Daniel, and welcome to Driving and Dragons. If you're watching this when it posts, thank you for taking a few minutes away from turkey, wine, and family to listen to me tell you how you're doing it wrong when it comes to running devils in your tabletop role-playing game. I'm thankful for the people who take the time to like, share, and comment below, and for all you wonderful people who do the subscribe and bell icon stuff that YouTube seems to like. And I still hope that one day I can show my thanks by giving away cars that are restored using channel revenue. I actually saw a really nice 85 Toyota half-ton pickup for sale at a neighbor's the other day that would have been a perfect giveaway project to make all of your off-road, million-mile vehicle challenge and third world regime change dreams come true. What I'm not thankful for is the pain-in-the-ass ignition systems that don't want to work on my 280ZX, unprincipled shills carrying water for Wizards of the Coast and defending their slander of Gary Gygax, bad arguments, and Clown Door DM. So, getting to the point of today's video, how are you doing it wrong when it comes to devils in your tabletop role-playing game? Well, first thing we have to do is divide the topic up into two categories. The alignment-based supernatural creatures of the nine hells found in Dungeons & Dragons, as well as their counterparts in other fantasy games, and the general concept of the Machiavellian mastermind villain of natural or supernatural nature that one might find in the top floors of a cyberpunk megacorp skyscraper or lurking in the shadows of 1920s Boston, ready to summon the great and terrible Yog-Sothoth. In short, we have to separate devils as extraplanar, functionally immortal beings who are defined by the cosmic, ethical, and moral forces they embody, and devils as scheming villains driven by dark designs and an obsession that sets all other consideration in favor of naked ambition. With that said, we can start with the D&D alignment-based version. A lawful evil villain is defined as one who methodically takes what he wants within the limits of a code of conduct without regard for whom it hurts. He cares about tradition, loyalty, and order, but not freedom, dignity, or life. He plays by the rules, but without mercy or compassion. And this is from the 3.5 Player's Handbook, which I think has some of the better descriptions of alignment. Devils are not simply the epitome of this concept. The tenets of the lawful evil alignment are core to their very existence. Devils do not act outside of their alignment for the same reason a human being doesn't simply stop breathing. It is a function of their existence. Where most GMs fall short in this regard is they struggle with the lawful side of the equation. Sure, they can make a Dark Lord with a master plan and scheming minions, but they ultimately end up having the devil or its lessers violate their code of ethics in a manner that would be perfectly rational in a human villain with a limited lifespan, but not in a being who not only has those ethical codes as a core part of their being, but also relies on the power structures and law codes to help them retain their power for millennia to follow. Which leads to the second consideration where GMs find a shortcoming, no pun intended, short-sightedness. GMs are humans. And even humans with an eye to the long term still think in terms of today, tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now. Devils are immortal and part of an eternal power struggle. Even the lowliest devil wants to attain more rank and more power over eons, so they aren't going to take a gain now that costs them double in the future without some plan for mitigating that loss. They also aren't going to do something now that leaves an open-ended opportunity to reprisal in the future, because the future could be tomorrow or it could come 10,000 years from now. Eternity is a very long time for somebody to be vulnerable. So how can we better play the devils in our D&D or other alignment-based game? First thing we can do is cheat viciously. By this, I mean that devils, with their immortal lives and being literally made of the stuff of scheming and plotting, need to be seen as having contingency plans for contingency plans. So changing their plans to perfectly counter the party's ideas makes perfect sense. They do something, it's automatically countered. You get something like, "Foolish mortals, did you really think I hadn't prepared for such an obvious move? You were but a piece on the game board, while I am a grand master who sees all pieces and every move that could be made in your miserable life." Where a devil, particularly a powerful one, should fail is through arrogance, something he did consider but brushed aside. A lieutenant whose loyalty he never questioned because they knew he was far too powerful or trusting, an important task to an unlikely hero. That kind of thing. Think about the Lord of the Rings. Sauron is the template for lawful evil. He was a Mire spirit who was literally corrupted by his desire to have everything in Arda in perfect order. His failures all came from his arrogance. Luthien and Huan, the Hound of the Valor, they beat him because Sauron knew the prophecy that Huan would fall to the mightiest wolf to ever exist. So he transformed himself into a werewolf to try and force that prophecy, never thinking that there could one day be a mightier wolf than him. He failed in the War of the Last Alliance because he thought his power was too great and his corruption via lesser rings and other machinations was too complete for the peoples of Middle-earth to come together and defeat him. And he failed during the War of the Ring because hobbits were of no consequence to him. He never considered a pair of hobbits who only wanted to go back to their quiet, comfortable lives, that they would slip past his mighty armies, past his guardians, and destroy his ring. His arrogance beat him every step of the way. I would argue that particularly when dealing with the more powerful elder devils, as opposed to the ones simply destined to be eternal slaves like your dretches and whatnot, the two questions should always color your responses as a DM or a GM. Knowing all the player's plans, what is the best way to have those plans lead to a trap or other misfortune? And then, are the players making use of elements that would either play to that devil's ego or would be seen as invisibly beneath him in his arrogance? Make your decisions from there. But remember, in all things, law and evil eternally. Evil means he's selfish, greedy, and has no empathy or concern for others. Lawful means he values tradition, structures, codes, systems, and order. Eternally means that he will not take a knight or a rook today if it means his queen is in jeopardy 50 moves later. He has to be thinking about that long term, even if it means conceding something right now just because it's within that code. In the case of D&D Devils, these things are the essence of their being, not simply guidelines. These devils should never break from their alignment. If anything, they should probably lose to the party because of their alignment. But next we talk about devils in the more abstract sense. The plotter, the schemer, the devious mastermind, the corporate climber in a game where alignment isn't a thing, or in a situation where your devil isn't an eternal creature from the nine hells, but is simply another less restricted creature who happens to have that lawful evil alignment. These are easier in a way simply because causing them to break character becomes an option for their ultimate demise. While not a devil per se, a good example is Jay Gatsby in The Great Gatsby. Throughout the entire story, he's the picture of what high society is supposed to be. He follows the rules. He knows how to move in their circles. And in the game of who gets Daisy Buchanan, he outmaneuvers Tom Buchanan at every turn. Until Tom, having figured out that he's uncouth, lower class in origin, baits him into losing his temper, pisses him off, which costs Gatsby the game in one move. If the PC Corpo is getting outmaneuvered and screwed over by his rival in a megacorp, using his punk friends to cause that refined corporate climber to break the social rules and embarrass the company might be a great way to beat him, and something that you should leave out there for the players. And this is actually something that I suggest you do with any of these intrigue plots or adventures where your devious main antagonist is set up to always be one step ahead of the party. Give them that hidden flaw, that secret they buried. Make it extremely difficult for the players to beat that bad guy head on, but leave threads that they can find to kind of unravel their schemes and plots. Think about Superman and Lex Luthor, and I know I use that example a lot, but it's one everyone understands, and it's obvious enough to make the point clear. Superman can pop Luthor's head like a zit. Everyone knows it. But Luthor always manages to put Supes in a position where he can't use his powers and come out ahead. It's either going to look too bad or it's going to cause too much damage. It doesn't matter what it is. Luthor always has some way that Superman can't use his power. But then when Superman manages to find a way to make Luthor make a mistake, the reader immediately feels that deep satisfaction of knowing that Superman finally has the chance to slap Luthor around. And you can give this to your players. Session after session, you've pissed them off. You have vexed them. You've outsmarted them, in part because you're cheating and making your final plans after you know theirs. They feel cheated. They're looking at you as the game master, and they may even be sour with you as the GM because, man, he just always has an answer for it. I think he's cheating us. You know, he's making it unfair and we can't win. But then they get that break. When you give them their gotcha moment and they know they have your villain by the short hairs, they get to watch him melt down and realize he lost. This is how you really want to play these devils and devilish creatures. You want them to be virtually unbeatable head on because they've plotted, planned, and set things up so far in advance. They're so much better than the players at working within the social order or the political system or whatever that they can't be beaten that way. But when you make them make that mistake, when you make them break character, when you change the game on them, then your players get to have that aha moment that just is so satisfying. That's what I've got today. Let me know what you're having for Thanksgiving and what you think about running devils in your TTRPG games down in the comments. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a belly full of food and a house full of smiles before waking up at 3 a.m. to bust some kid's grandma over the head with a folding chair like you're in WWE so you can get that last pack of Cobble minis that they have on sale at Target.